All right. So, Brian does not need any introduction. Brian is presented here pilot times and now on a nice boat. Okay. All right, Tom. Not Tom. Brian, take it away, please.
All right. I'll get into slideshow mode here. Um, cool. Oh,
Nice
it says my
tropical
internet connection's
background,
on
by the
stable.
way.
What was that?
A nice tropical background, by the way.
Yes, indeed. That one I didn't take that picture. That's just one of the stock Zoom ones. Um, all right. So this presentation is about a trip to the Bahamas I took back in February. This was like a kind of a last minute thing. I booked on the Monday and then left on the Saturday. So that was that. There was some effect on the decision making there. But on this trip, I actually like remembered to take a picture of the boat. We were happened to be on a shallow dive, and I had the fisheye lens on, so I took this picture. I didn't take care of my lens enough to stop the water drops. I didn't. I know there's licking and potatoes that are options, but I didn't do either of those things. Um, so here we go. The journey, nice and easy, direct flight, Boston to Nassau. Um, Unfortunately, it was February. Um, so first step was we left from the gate on time, and then we had to go de-ice. It was snowing, but it seemed fine. There wasn't really much accumulation in Boston. Unfortunately, while we were on the de-icing pad, the runways got closed. Apparently, there was freezing fog. So our journey was Boston to Boston. Here we are, back at the gate after like 45 minutes de-icing and taxiing our way back. They said when we got back to the gate, basically soon after that, the runways reopened, but we had been idling for a while. We needed more fuel. It was going to be 45 minutes before they got more fuel. They said, "Okay, guys, everybody can get off the plane, go get a snack, whatever. Stay close. Don't go too far." A bunch of people immediately got off the plane. 5 minutes later, the fuel truck arrived, and so they 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 came on and they were like, all right, well, given that everybody got off the plane, or most of the people got off the plane, we need everybody else to get off and we have to reboard the plane just to keep track of everybody. Um, so we take our things, we get off the plane. They're having computer problems. We can't board the plane again. Um, so we got to go through de-icing again. But this time they got us at the gate, which was nice. But here we go, de-icing number two. Who knows? Um, So then we rolled over to the runway, we got in the big long line, and we had to pause before we took off. And I looked down the runway and I saw them plowing the runway in front of us. So the plows did their thing, they cleared, off we go. Made it. So here it is. I arrived in sunny, beautiful Bahamas at 3 p.m. as planned. Um, I was 5+ hours late. I had been in touch with the boat, so I knew that they weren't gonna leave without me. But still, not great. Um, so I finally made it to the boat. Probably it was like 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Nobody else was around. All the other passengers were like, everybody was set up. They were all like in their cabins. So I set up. I got my briefing solo that they had all gotten earlier. And this is one of the best things about liveaboard diving. This was my setup for the week. So I just set up this one time, and then this was where I hung out. A little bit about the boat. So this boat is actually basically identical to the Cuba Aggressor, which was the last liveaboard I was on. So it was very familiar layout. It's similar to a lot of the other Aggressor boats. 3 levels, most cabins down below. There's 2 fancy cabins up top. I was in number 7. That was my room. Because I booked so late, I knew that there were only 10 passengers on this boat, so I knew I was going to get my own room. So that was a nice perk. I didn't have to pay the single supplement. Um, they showed me one of these rooms, which is they're just more cramped because the boat starts to curve in and the beds are like kind of close together. It would have been fine for me, but I had the option, so I took 7 instead. So this was the room. Some of the liveaboards have like a bunk style setup. This one doesn't, which is way nicer. Side by side, plenty of storage underneath if you have suitcases and a roommate. In my case, I just put my suitcases on one of the beds. Um, the air conditioning was weird. I don't know. I couldn't really make any sense of it. You set a temperature and it just tends to kind of just blow hard until you shut it off. So I never really did get the temperature right, but I managed to like kind of try and keep it relatively comfortable. Here's the dive deck. This is off the aggressor site. So they have two big camera tables, which was great. So plenty of space to spread out your camera gear, outdoor charging for the lithium batteries, and then they had the like your rechargeables and anything else you wanted to charge. There was a spot in the inside space that was washed over, so you weren't. They were very specific about not leaving batteries unattended in your room or anything like that, which was good. I always good to hear. Um, Camera gear. So I got this. This was my new rig. It had been in the water twice before this trip. So it's an Olympus OM1. This particular configuration is with the fisheye lens. And I had not had this in the water at all. So this was totally new to me. Brought it on the trip, like, all right, here we go. Here goes nothing. Um, I got the two CNC strobes, and then a focus light up on top. And then for some of the dives, I stuck a GoPro on that cold shoe spot. Here's the macro setup, which I dove for most of the dives. So it's the 60 millimeter macro lens, and then I have the flip diopter, which is handy for that extra magnification when you need it. Um, if I take out that extension ring, I can shoot with the 30 millimeter as well, which I did for some of the dives, but this was most of the macro shooting I did. And I use I forget the part number on it, but it's like the little flash that comes with it came with my OM1 that I bought used. And so that just goes into the housing and then fires, through the fiber optic cables. There's also the flash trigger. You can buy a Nauticam one or Backscatter has them, but I went cheap to start, and I'm just using the onboard flash. Uh, Liveaboard diving, eat, sleep, dive. So if you see, this was our route, and a list of the dives except Friday. We had two dives; those didn't make it onto this board when I took the picture. Um, we started in Nassau, and then we went over to the Exumas, did a loop around there, did a bunch of dives around that area, transited over to Eleuthera for a bit, did some dives over there, and then came back for a couple dives, and then went back to Nassau. Um, Most days it was five dives. Obviously you can pick and choose if you want, but I did all of them. We had four night dives, um, which is good. I always love night dives. But we got to see a bunch of different spots, and this is fairly similar. I did a liveaboard back in 2019 to the Bahamas, and it was a fairly similar kind of route. That one was on Aquacat, but this was, um, yeah. So, and I meant to mention the rough schedule. So the schedule is on this boat was 8 o'clock or breakfast, 8 o'clock dive, snack, 10:30 dive, lunch, and a nap, and then a 2 o'clock dive, snack, 4 o'clock dive, and then dinner. And then whenever we were done with dinner, we would go do the night dive. Um, there were a number of dives that were just me and the dive guide. So a lot of people skip dives, and so I ended up with there were either like two or three of us, or sometimes just me and the dive guide. So I had some opportunity to kind of slow down and avoid the group. Um, but it wasn't a big group anyway, even if all of us went on it. I'm gonna start before I get into this. So if you've been on a night dive, you've seen bloodworms. As it turns out, they're like the back half of worms that live down in the sand, and um, they come up basically the back half like metamorphoses into this like weird little swimming worm thing that can sense light. And so the basic thing is they all release at the same time, and they all like go for the surface or any light, as it turns out. Um, the as I was doing my research, I found out that this happens on the last quarter moon, which happened to be the exact phase of the moon on this particular dive. So it was great. And this was just constant. Like you couldn't do anything. So I exacted my revenge on these little critters by bringing them over to the coral so the coral can just pluck them out. Basket stars will do this too, which is pretty great. Um, so good entertainment if you need to do something. Um, and then I shut the light off and swam away. But it was just crazy how many bloodworms there were on this dive. Um, so that was not my favorite night dive, but I started with that because we're going to go through a bunch of nicer pictures and you'll hopefully forget that. Oops. Let's see. Oops, there we go. All right. So this is a Harlequin bass, pretty common, but I liked this sort of fish portrait shot with the 30 millimeter. I do here. There we go. Um, Moon jelly. I don't usually see a lot of these on Caribbean dives, but this one was up in the water column, so I took a picture. This is a tiny, tiny basket star on a sea fan. I didn't actually know what it was. Like the guide pointed to it, and we were both kind of puzzling over it. And then I took the picture, and then when I reviewed it on the computer, I was like, oh, yeah, it's a basket star, just itty bitty. This was looking down into a wreck. There was a hole in the top, and it was just full of silver sides. So shooting them from above, lots of movement. Always love a plenty. Can't resist them. I did find some on this trip. This was a roughhead blenny, and he was checking me out to see what I was doing. But I also managed this shot, which I really like. Managed to get the nice dark background, nice pop. You get to see all of his crazy hairdo. Um, and this was with the 30 millimeter, so I did have to crop in a bunch. But Lightroom's super resolution was awesome for this. It let me keep a quite a bit of detail, even with a big crop. Neck crab. So this guy's upside down. He's hanging off, and he's just grabbing. I think I have another picture of him where he grabbed one of the bloodworms that I brought over to him. Very generous of me. Um, so his eye is down here, and he's hanging upside down. He got his claws. And the one of the dive guides on the boat, he wasn't on the dive, but he was like, "Okay, when you go to the wreck, go past it. There's this big pillar with sponges on it. There will be neck crabs there." Sure enough, as advertised, there was a neck crab. So that was pretty impressive. Um, got a great star coral, so I always like to do these like, sort of close up, ideally kind of narrow depth of field appearance to them. I mean, it's crazy. It looks like a weird like alien landscape. Polyps are all pulled in on this one. Yellowtail snapper, super common. These guys would just like kind of follow us around. I think this one I like looked over my shoulder and he was just like, "Hello." So I took a picture of him. Um, this was like one of the few sort of reefscapes that I found that was like really kind of worth photographing. I was literally like on this dive. This is my first dive in the water with the fisheye, and I was like taking some pictures of stuff, and I was like, man, where's like the big like coral heads and stuff that I wanna take a picture of? And we came around this from the other side, and I saw through that there were the branches of this thing. And then we swam around, and I was like, oh my God, this thing is like 15 feet tall, like just absolutely massive. Um, so that was one of the few reefscapes I found, but this was just impressive. So on that same dive, I had the fisheye lens when I found this little Hamner's Tritonia nudibranch, which is, of course, exactly the lens you want for that setup. So this was the first time I had seen one of these things underwater. I was like, oh my God. So I like, I was freaking out. I took the best picture I could, but then I made sure to point it out to all the people who had macro setups. So they all got pictures, but I was just like crushed after this dive that I found this nudie and I didn't have the right equipment. But later I did. So I brought the macro lens, and I was looking around at all these soft corals, just looking at them to see if I could find these things again on now that I had the right macro stuff. And I found these eggs. I was like, all right, I know what the deal is here. They're around here somewhere. Um, so I just continued to look around this piece, and sure enough, there were probably four of them on here. And this was my favorite shot of it because I got the one kind of leading the way. And you can really get a sense of like the camouflage, like these branches off to the side look just very similar to the polyps sticking out. Um, very cool. So look for those if you're in the Caribbean and you have these. I mean, if you see this, maybe look for these, and then you might find these. Great Barracuda. We had these guys, I mean, super common generally, but they just like to hang out under the boat. This is with the fisheye, so I was like, basically, camera to face with this guy, and he was just kind of giving me a look like, what are we doing here? But he let me take the picture, so and I went black and white with it. This is mostly like partially I'm not good at editing wide angle shots. It was too much blue, and I was like, all right, I think it looks cool in black and white anyway, so that's the way I went with it. This is an Atlantic gray cowrie, and like, the subject is kind of fine, but the thing that I liked about this shot was just the point of view of the sponge kind of starting right next to you and then going off into the distance. Um, so I'm gonna look for more opportunities to shoot this shot because I like the visual of it. Wire coral shrimp. So I checked so many wire corals, and I found this one time and took this picture and then got back to the boat and I was like, oh no, I was shooting f2.8 because I like to, make it as difficult as possible to get focus on things. No, I just missed. I just wasn't paying attention to my settings. Um, this was the only one I could find. This was the best shot I got. So more hunting to do on that one because they're really cool. This is a sharp-nosed puffer. They're like often you can find them kind of sleeping in various spots on a night dive. That's what this one was doing. Blue chromis with an isopod. So this is not gonna like be a big seller on my photo website or anything like that, but I thought it was really cool because I've seen this a few times, but this was the best photo I got of it. This thing's obviously huge. Um, and bonus, I got a nice picture of a blue chromis. So I was pleased with the way this one came out. Cleaning gobies, super common. They're usually sort of darting around on the brain corals, you know, when they're not cleaning. But this one was managed to stay still just long enough for me to snap a picture. Um, Spiny head blenny, I was so excited when I found this one in this particular spot because I really like the Christmas tree worm as a nice like sort of color pop. It's good texture, like it's everything. So I was really happy that he was in this spot. It was a little tricky to get the light right into there. So I had to do some editing there. But I was really happy that he was in this spot and I managed to find him here. And the nice white background is just, easy to see the details of the blending. Bridled goby darting around in the sand all the time. This one managed to stay still, and I managed to separate it from the sand that they like to hang out in. So, I like that one. Sailfin blenny. I kept waiting for this guy to come out and do, or maybe this is the female. I'm not sure. But no, no fin flipping, no anything exciting. Just this was another blenny. Had to take a picture. Another cleaning goby. This one kind of was creeping over the coral to see him, so you get a little foreground there. He's kind of eyeing me, wondering what I'm up to. It's the Bahamas, so we had sharks. Uh, there were a few reported sightings of hammerheads off in the distance. Nobody got a good look at any, and we saw like maybe two or three nurse sharks, but it was mostly Caribbean reef sharks. Um, So they did one of the dives on the boat. They did a baited dive where they weren't feeding them, but they put some bait down in a box, so they were just annoying the sharks. Um, and they all they came by. They were all bumping the box and cruising by, and we were all just hanging out taking pictures. I like this shot because it just gets it gets the whole group in it. Another one under the boat. One thing I did learn on this dive is that I had the fisheye lens, so that was new. And I didn't. I was going full manual, and I kept shooting. I'd shoot like down and then up into the sun, and then down and up into the sun, and so it was just a mess trying to like this one is I had to crop out the sun, and you can still sort of see that it's blown out in that top corner. So. I think I got to play with a little bit of auto settings or something for a more dynamic environment like that where you're not necessarily planning, you're sort of reacting to the animals. But and again, this was my second dive with the fisheye, so cool. Lots of learning. This is a Caribbean velvet shrimp. There were a lot of these like sort of down in the sand, and like many shrimp, they just have really cool eyes. I'm not sure what the species is on this crab, but it was climbing on one of these like sort of thin corals. So I like that I managed to capture kind of a little bit of foreground in front of it, but still get the crab in nice focus, nice dark background. So it's a cool little guy. Box crab, always a favorite. I didn't see many on this trip, but this guy was pretty cooperative. And if you look down at the bottom, you'll notice he managed to grab one of the bloodworms that I donated. And you can see the little dark eye spots, look like little weird eyes in the foreground there. Um, Very cool. I like the box crabs. Peterson shrimp, I always check whenever there's an anemone around. I always look for them. They're really cool. They're difficult to photograph because they're so clear, but this one, like the details came out really sharp, which I liked on around the eyes, and then the little hairs on the antennae and stuff. Black cap basslet, very common. A lot of times they'll be on the bottom of overhangs. That's a pretty common spot for them, but just a nice purple color. Um, Fish portrait, but I like them. I think they're cool. This was an awesome find. So this is an eye spot Costostiella. So it's like a Shaun the Sheep nudibranch. And this one was just like crawling in the sand, and they're like same as Shaun the Sheep. They're like so tiny. So I didn't have quite as much time as I wanted to kind of work on this one. Because it was this was one where we did actually have a group, and so the group was moving on, and meanwhile I'm like, spending all this time trying to get this, little grain of rice in focus. So this was the best I could do, but I was super excited to find it. And these ones have the little yellow rings around the tips, which is, I don't know, just lots of cool textures and things that I would love to have gotten in better focus. But this was a cool find. So I always, you always look to the crew or whoever your dive master is, and when the dive master is like dancing in the water, it's an exciting find. I had never seen a batfish before, so I knew exactly, as soon as he pointed out, like, oh my God, that's super cool. So this is a short-nosed batfish, and it was just like hanging out in the sand as like 10 different people took pictures of it and just hanging out hoping we would go away. Um, but very cool to see. So this is a juvenile blue tang before it went blue. Oh, and actually, it's kind of an interesting effect that I just noticed it now. It has this sort of blue glow. I don't know if that's just like chromatic aberration or what, but actually, it's neat. I think they do have some coloration there, but you can't really see it from the front. Hmm. Branching anemone. These are sometimes sticking out of cracks. They're just cool texture. Usually orange, varying shapes and stuff in there. I hadn't seen this species of filefish before. Orange spotted filefish. This one was just, kind of doing the filefish thing, hanging out like this as we came over to it and was like trying to take pictures. I think, oh yeah, I had the macro lens, so this was kind of far off. So that's why the colors are kind of weird, and I had to do a bunch with it because I was not able to get close with a 60 millimeter macro lens on a large fish. This was the superstar nudibranch of the trip. We saw a bunch of these in various spots. Red-tip sea goddess. This one, most of them were on these like black sponges, but this one, and a lot of times they were like face down or like in difficult spots. But this one was out in the sand, so I had the advantage here. Um, so they're just really cool. I love the colors. And then I swung around to get the front face shot. I think this was with the I think I had the diopter on for this one. And I love the way this came out. Um, Nassau grouper, they're usually just like sort of, all right, what are you doing? Like that they're just sort of they're just hanging out. They're watching people. You get kind of close and they're like, are you gonna come closer or can I just stay here? And I like that I captured the eye, the dome of the eye. That's always a thing that I look for in the pictures because I just think that's crazy, like the that shape. Slender filefish, probably yeah, small, very elusive. Don't wanna be photographed. So they're constantly swimming through. So I have probably 15 photos of this little one trying to get a reasonable shot without the eye blocked by the coral or anything like that. So, flamingo tongue, millions of these everywhere. This one I went way in close and it came out really dark and kind of moody. So, I thought that was cool. So one of the dives is it's a plane wreck. I think it's a I don't know, remember exactly what the story is, but I had done this dive before, so I knew it was going to be a really cool place for the fisheye. So I rushed. I got ready really fast. I hopped in. I kicked over as fast as I could, and so I got there before any of the other divers were there. So I could take some of these like sort of wide shots and have them nice and clean. Um, this one I like this was one of the early ones that I took on the dive, and it actually came out pretty nice. Another case where I jumped around and tried to do take too many photos on this dive rather than sort of slowing down and taking fewer photos and working to get all the details right. I had a lot of them that I came up and I was like, ugh. I took like a sequence of seven of these and none of them are good. So that was a learning, but I like the way this one came out with sort of the ghostly wreck in the background and the sunshine. And this is like, it's perfect. It's like 20 feet deep. Like we had beautiful sunshine that day, so it's like that's what I'm looking for. Uh, it was that same dive where the cover photo. I went and just took a picture of the front of the boat. Mhm. Banded coral shrimp. Lots of these guys around. They're often upside down, usually under overhangs. I forget if I flipped this one, but I managed to like actually get the light in there, so um, they're pretty cool. Horse conch. This was on a night dive. This guy was like huge. It's like 10 inches or something, like just absolutely massive. I think this was on the plane wreck actually. Yeah. So we did the day dive and then we did the night dive on the plane wreck as well, which was so I had the fish eye for the day dive and then I brought the macro for the night dive and then found this gigantic snail. So it's never what you want. Um, Banded coral shrimp. This one has a bloodworm. So night dive, lots of bloodworms. Um, Good little mirror effect. These guys weren't fighting, so lionfish, they're invasive, but they're also pretty. I like the Christmas tree worms near the snout here. This was the only starfish I saw on the whole trip. Red thorny sea star. It's like just out in the sand. It's like, oh, nice. Another Nassau grouper. Give me the give me the eyes. So this was the absolute last dive of the trip. And we had the group, it was like almost everybody, and we were swimming under the boat. And I was like kind of lagging behind, like, just hanging out. And then I noticed these slugs in the grass. Um, And I was just like, all right, well, this is my dive. I'm gonna hang out here. So I spent probably 20 minutes taking pictures of these. Um, Obviously like dodging the grass and the sand in the way, and they actually move fairly quickly. So it was like it was changing a lot. Um, but they're just really cool looking. And then this was the other shot that I liked, where you get this sort of like the view of the face, I guess. Not really, but um, I don't really know much about these. They're very colorful. That's pretty much it. And then after I spent all my time with those slugs, I was swimming over to this area, and there was a cleaner shrimp on the grouper, and I'm like, oh, cool, I'll get some awesome behavior shots. So I like took this as I was approaching, and then I got a little bit closer, and they were just like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. We weren't doing anything. There's nothing interesting happening here. It's just a grouper and a Peterson shrimp. Um, so, all right, no photo there. Um, so this is Cobia Cage, which is this like crazy structure where they were farm raising cobia, which are like pretty large fish. Um, they This thing I had seen it back in 2019 when I was on the last liveaboard, and it was like in the sand, like it was hanging up, basically up from the sand. This thing is probably like 60 feet tall, like it's absolutely massive, as you can see from the divers. Um, but there was a storm like 2 weeks before I was there that basically blew this thing over, and it's like hanging over the edge of the wall. Like, and if that thing goes over the wall, it's gone. It's like, whatever, couple thousand feet down. So it's just kind of hanging there. So that was kind of interesting to see. Just having been there before and now seeing it, like a couple hundred feet away, and at risk of falling over the edge. Lots of sunsets. It was every night we would pause dinner to go check out what the sunset was like. Um, this one was super weird. Lots of strange like ridges and texture in the clouds. Um, So, wrapping it up, I did 26 dives, which was good enough for Iron Diver. I spent 20 hours, 46 minutes underwater, 1,450 cubic feet approximately. My terrible bloodworm dive didn't, my computer didn't track my air properly, so that was fine. It was only like 20 minutes or something. Um, 4 night dives, water temperature was 75, air temperature was 70 and breezy. So, uh, I, in retrospect, I wish I had brought more exposure protection. I had a very thin 3 mil and a 3 mil hooded vest. The boat gave me another 3 mil suit to put over that, and I was comfortable. But it's annoying taking off 3 layers and then putting them back on every dive. So I think if I had just brought my 7 mil, I would have been happy. Um, So, either I should have either dressed warmer or just gone further south to go find warmer conditions. I spent most of the week when I was above water in a sweatshirt and sweatpants. So not a lot of sun tanning, although I don't usually tan much on these trips. Um, the OM1 is awesome. I had a lot of fun learning it. I'm like more to try out, lots to learn. Fisheye was I took a lot of really bad shots, but I managed to get a few and I had a good time. So um, boat, food, crew, all great. The diving was okay. Like the reef had a few good spots, but there was a ton of algae and like it just wasn't super, super healthy. Um, so that was a bit disappointing. And then, you know, 3 hour flight, allegedly. My flight home was perfectly smooth. Like it was, I think I was home like 4 hours after I took off from Bahamas. Like everything went super smooth. Logan was fast with the bags. I caught my bus to Logan, I caught my Logan Express. Like everything was super fast on the way back. So that was like a good sign of what it could be. So that's it.
Wow.
Uh,
Excellent.
yeah, thank you. I can stop sharing.
All
If
right.
anyone has any questions or
Very, very
anything.
good. Well, that's the boat dive, and like you say, 3 hours away. That's a nice escape for the winter. Yeah,
Yeah,
very, very nice.
yeah,
And and also pretty cool. A little courageous there for taking your fisheye for and not having used it before, but
yep,
it's okay. Yeah, you did well. Yeah.
yeah.
Any exposure problems with the sharks? Because the shark images look great.
You are.
Um, I mean, I took a lot of pictures on that dive and it was varied. There were some of them were totally blown out, some of them were dark. I was just like rapidly sort of, fiddling with settings. When really I think probably
Oh my God.
maybe auto ISO or even like shutter priority or something, just play with some of the automatic settings to just increase my odds as I'm
Sure.
just randomly flailing around. So that's probably something I would have done differently, but I didn't know. So
But
yeah.
very good. Very, very good. And
Brian, one question. When did the trip happen?
It was the February 7th through 14th. So it was that first whatever full week of February.
Is this year?
Yeah, 2026.
Is it there? Because I've heard there's a lot of problems with the congestion for travelers because of this the current political situation with the ice and is there was a because I'm planning to fly also soon, and
Hmm.
people say that you have to take more time to go through the customs.
PSA.
Yeah, so this was before the shutdown started. But from what I've seen, Logan is actually fine if you're flying out of Logan.
I do, yeah, I
Yeah,
will.
one of the things that people were saying is that because Logan doesn't have like sort of one central security, it's actually better, because it's distributed to each of the
Uh-huh.
terminals. So I've seen a lot of posts where people are anxious about it and asking about it. And most of the time it's like, no, no, it's just sort of it's smooth. Obviously subject to change and give yourself some extra time, but we don't so far we don't have the like 4 hour, 4 hour lines or anything like that. Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah. But that's just from what I've read online. This trip was before that.
Okay, thank you.
So I breezed through security and all that. And my problems didn't begin until I actually was on the plane and ready to fly out.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Brian. But now, in interest of time, we're going to segue right over to Michael. And Michael's going to show us the pluses and the bummers of entering a photo contest. All right. Correct, Michael?
You're directionally correct. So I'm going to try and share this as usual and hope it works. Let me go to presentation mode first, and then to the top. All right.
Yep.
Can you see
Good.
it okay?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So as Andy mentioned, I did something similar to this last year, and uh, I was kind of a last second addition at the last meeting. He said they had an opening, so I thought I could pull this together. So um, seems like the same theme. So these are basically mostly 2025 images, a few very late 2024s. Virginia was involved in this last year, but she does taxes, so she's busy right now. So I do have one picture of her in here. All right. So, yeah. So she's in the background. She said that picture is of her. This is the same one I used last year for my intro slide. All right. So this is my wide angle setup. I was Sony A1 in an Audicam housing. For wide angle, I use the Sony 28 to 60 millimeter lens. Um, what's shown here is an Audicam WWL1B, but I have since moved on to the FCP1 in the utter insanity that I now have. And then two CNC YSD3 Mark II strobes, which are shown here. For macro, I use the Sony 90 millimeter. I know some people are migrating now to the 100 millimeter. Um, the 90 millimeter actually is a very good lens. And then for subjects that are up to probably 3 or 4 feet away, I'll use the MFO1. Can you all see my pointer?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the MFO1. So I put that on one side of my flip adapter. And then I'll put the SMC1 in my pocket because this is the one I'm probably least likely to use. And if I do use it, I'm going to have the most time because this one has the highest magnification, um, and lets you get about, I don't know, an inch or two away, at least, maybe closer from the subject. The MFO one lets you get about 3 or 4 inches away, and it does seem to enhance the clarity. And then the other one, which is Nauticam just came out with recently, is this is actually the MFO 3. Sorry, this should be a 3, the big one. And it converts your 90 millimeter to, in essence, a 60 millimeter. And so that allows you to take larger subjects, and it's really good for blackwater. The 90 millimeter alone is not great with blackwater. If you put the MFO1, it gets a little bit better, but it's still not ideal. Then I will use the backscatter mini flash. I have both an MF1 and an MF2, plus a snoot, which is shown here. And then if you put them together, that's what it looks like. And then there's 2 aperture cards that you can throw in there. I just take one of them down with me. And then on the other side, I'll either have the CNC YSD3 Mark II, also the same one I use for wide angle, or I'll use a backscatter hybrid strobe as another alternative. So that's my macro setup. So this is from an Alex Mustard workshop, just to show the number and the size of the cameras. So this is the camera table, and this is actually Alex looking at me. But you can see the top of the table is completely filled, and then there's a spillover area onto this bench, and then there's more spillover onto another table. And the boat is actually not full. He usually does not completely fill it up, but just to show you the number of large camera setups. And most of them are SLR type cameras. Not all, but usually most of them are. All right. General comments. There's a lot of contests. I think some of you enter some of them. Some of them are free. Those are usually smaller and local. Some have a fee. Some donate, like the Dive into Pink that Allison Vitsky runs. They'll donate all their proceeds to a cause. Obviously, the larger the contest, the more international, the more competition there is. There's a variety of different rules, so you want to be sure that you follow them. You can get disqualified, and if you do, a lot of times you won't even know that it happened. I've actually never been disqualified. I don't enter that many contests, so I generally it's easy to follow the rules. And I also don't usually try and skirt the rules. I know some people will do that. Different contests seem to favor different styles, so an image can do well in one and not in another, and I have some examples of that. Some contests want really new cutting edge stuff that's never been seen type of thought process. Others prefer images that are very similar to winners from previous years, so you can look at that for the style. And most of them have different categories, but I think every contest has at least wide angle and macro. Rarely do you get feedback. An underwater photographer of the year is, as far as I know, the exception to that. They do give you feedback on where you place. So that's why I really like that contest. All right, so 2026, and this is, you submit this by January, the very beginning of January 26. So this is stuff mostly from 2025. So there were 7 rounds going up to the final awarded images. And so this year they had almost 8,000 images. The first cut, almost everybody makes it to there. I guess there's some disqualifications. Then there's round 2, you're down to 55%. Round 3 is 25%. Round 4, the quarterfinals, is the top 15%. Semifinals didn't do much of a cut, and I'm not privy to what's the rationale, but they went down to 11%. And then to go to the finals, there's actually a pretty big cut. They go down to 4%. There's then, if you make the finals, there's a short list of 200 images, and that equates to top 2.5%. And these are the ones they will actually ask you to provide your image file, the raw file, to make sure that you're not cheating. And then they do a further cut, and the winners, there's 112 winners this year, and that's the top 1.4%. So that's the way it breaks down, and you get to find out where you landed. So they have 20 to 30 images that are finalists in each category. That's actually a little lower than last year. Last year they went up to 40. And there are 8 images awarded in each category. I think last year they went up to 10. And this is the order, sorry, the categories in the order of the number of submissions, not including the British categories. And so macro was the number 1 category, had the most submissions. Portrait was next, wide angle third, behavior. Up and coming is for people that have not won another major contest. So I fit into that. Black and white, marine conservation, coral reefs, smartphones, Rex, and then compact was the lowest. So if you have a compact camera and you're taking good pictures, you probably have the best chance of any of these categories. You do pay to enter. You can pay to put in 3, 10, or 20, and the cost goes up, but it's not that much. I think it's about $60 to do 20 images. And the marine conservation, if I recall correctly, was free. And I'm not sure about the British categories because I don't qualify for that. All right, so the results, you'll get your results something like this. This is part of my results. This is my best page. The winners are there. You can go to the Underwater Photographer of the Year and look at all the winners. I certainly recommend that you consider doing that. Overall, I actually did better last year than this year, and I actually felt I had better content last year than this year. But my best images went farther this year than last year. So maybe that's a bit of a trade-off. So now I'm going to jump into my images, just go through them. So this is in chronological order as well. So last year we were in Tulambam in Bali, Indonesia in December. So I'm going to start with those. So this is a line sea hare. It was snooted. You can see my settings there. I usually try and get a higher f-stop on most of my macro stuff because I like to see the creature or whatever I'm taking a picture of, and the depth of field's usually pretty low to begin with. However, that's not considered very artistic and creative from a photography standpoint. This one made it into the second round, so not very far. I really liked it. I get sick of, honestly, of the head-on shots. So that's another thing is I know what people are looking for just sometimes, but I kind of get tired of seeing that all the time. So I kind of like it where you get to see some of the body. So I thought this was cool. He reminded me a little bit of a rabbit, so I thought that was neat. This is a Hypsilodorus rue. There are 3 species of Hypsilodorus that look very similar. One of them is called Kanga. Another one is called rue, and that was done with intent, kangaroo. And then confetti is the third one that is very similar. So again, I really like this one. It's not quite a head-on shot, but it's pretty close. The rhinophores are in really great focus. And then you can also see the mouth down below here. It was snooted. I got the light really good. And then you can see the gills in the back. Um, and one of the things you look for, the gills are different between the species, and they've got the two red lines. Each gill lamella is triangular, and so you can see, although it's a little out of focus, you can see that in this image. But despite all that, it only made it to the third round. I put this one into up and coming. This was one of the few wide angle shots that I took in Bali. We went to a wreck and I threw the wide angle on, and this porcupine fish was hanging out by the wreck. The water there was pretty green. So the color here is actually what the water was like. Um, this I entered into portrait. It only made it to the second round, so it didn't make it very far. However, I also entered this one into a local store in Texas that we do some shopping at. And Virginia actually is from Texas, so she did a lot of work with that shop. And this made it into the runner-up in the makes me laugh category. They don't have that category for the underwater photographer of the year. So I like this, it's very head-on shot, but you can still see the tail. I like the fact you can see part of the body. It's got its mouth open, and the focus again was really good. This was sitting on top of some coral. Probably would have done better if it was an inch higher and it had a little more separation from the underlying coral. Um, so now our next trip, we went to Palau. This is the first time we'd been to Palau, and a lot of schools. I actually found it difficult to get good pictures, though. So I didn't get as much from Palau, but this was actually a dark shot. It was cloudy a lot, and so we didn't get a lot of natural light. So I turned this into a black and white. The green turtles here really popped. There were two of them. You can see the turtle in the back is interacting with the one in front, looking at it. Unfortunately, the one in the front decided not to look at me. That would have probably made it a little bit better shot. But this one only made it to the second round, and it was in the black and white category. They do actually they say you can enter a black and white shot in any category, but they recommend that most often you go into black and white category if you have a black and white shot, unless you have a rec. All right, so this was a really cool reef scene. This is at a site called Anemone City in the Red Sea of Egypt. This was nearing sunset, and they have a whole lot of these anemones. The body walls are red, so it's really cool. They start to close up a bit as the sun goes down, so you can get to see that red coloration, make it pop. And then you will sometimes, if you're patient enough, you'll get these schools of various jack species swimming over the top. And so you have to be patient, and you have to hope that the anemone fish are actually arranged in a decent orientation, and that the jacks, when they swim over, they're in a decent orientation also. And plus, then you have to hope that there's no other divers that get in your way. So I happen to be the last person sticking around the dive site, and Virginia's laughing at me because I'm often last. And this school swam right over. You can actually see the clownfish or anemone fish are looking at them a little bit because they will come down and eat the anemone fish if they're not looking carefully. So I actually thought this was a great picture. It had sun, it had a school, it had anemones with red bodies, and it had the anemone fish. And it was all in good focus, but it only made it to the third round and up and coming. Um, this is also the Red Sea. There are some smaller schools of barracuda there on occasion. And I was lucky enough that this school swam by me. Oftentimes, they're trying to swim away from you, but there was another diver that kind of made them turn around and then they came right by me. So I thought that was neat. You get some motion in there. Because I was shooting into the sun, I had a high shutter speed. And since I'm shooting the silverfish at lower f-stop, and the water was really clear. And this only made it to the third round and up and coming as well. It'll get a little better, but not a whole lot better. um, so next we went back to Tulumban in Bali. I think this was in August, and we were with a group of people, mostly underwater photographers. And I was swimming along and I was just, stunned and disappointed to find this. So this is a leopard crinoid shrimp on a single arm of a feather star that somebody pulled off from the feather star and stuck in the sand so that they could get a better picture of the crinoid shrimp. Now, I will say that one of my great frustrations of Bali or Tulumban is the fact that so many divers are down there manipulating the subjects. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And the Chinese divers in particular are terrible at this. They will pick subjects up, move them 20, 30 feet, 20, 30 yards. They'll take a little frogfish from where it is and they'll put it on something that they want it on. And then when they're done, they leave it where they put it. They don't put it back. So, it's really disappointing. A lot of the dive masters, the dive guides will also do that unless you specifically tell them not to. So there's a tremendous amount of animal harassment. And I'll be frank, I have some pictures of emperor shrimp coming up on nudibranchs and some other stuff, and I think that 95% of those that I see are manipulated, often significantly. None of mine were. And Virginia can tell you, I took 60 or 70 shots of the same shrimp, waiting for it to get in the right spot without poking it. But this one again made it to the fourth round. I didn't know how it would be perceived because again, this goes right to the heart of photo contest, right? People are causing this because of underwater photography. But it made it to the fourth round, so that was kind of nice. This is a juvenile painted frogfish. It was snooted. And Virginia really liked this more than I did, and the judges liked it a lot more than I did too. This one made it to the fifth round, which was the semifinals in portrait. But the focus on the eye was really good. And then it was snooted. I think the lighting was really good on this. And then you got the fade out, but you can still see a little bit of the caudal fin in the background. Still in Tulumban, this is an orangutan crab. I like this because you can feel some of the water motion with the algae that's growing on it, that what they call, the hair. And then this particular crab was pretty easy to shoot. It just sat there. And I noticed it was raising and lowering its claw, not really to feed, but just kind of raising it by its eye. And so I kind of looked at, well, that looks like it's saluting. And I tried to get a shot where the claw was perfectly framing the eye. And so this is what I came up with. Um, had a little bit lower f-stop on this. This one was in portrait, and it only made it to the second round also. Still in Tulamban. Many of you probably know, but in case not everybody does, there are species of fish called shrimp gobies, and they live with species of snapping shrimp. Um, they live in the same hole, and a lot of times the shrimp are relatively blind or completely blind, depending on the species. And so they have a very symbiotic relationship where um, the shrimp goby will keep watch, and the snapping shrimp will dig the hole. And sometimes there's one or two fish, and with one or two shrimp. I've never seen a total of four. It's either one fish and two shrimp, or one shrimp and two fish that I've seen, but they probably have two and two also. The Randall's snapping shrimp is very beautiful. Many of these shrimp are much more drab colored, but this one is very beautiful. It's got the red color, and then the flagtail shrimp goby also has a very beautiful tail, which is a little out of focus. This is about as high as the f-stop as you can get. And I also zoomed in, which meant that I had a better depth of field than if I'd been closer. Now, these guys will not let you get that close. They're a bit skittish. So I thought this was actually from a challenging from a standpoint of how easy it is, this was actually not that easy of a shot to get. But it also made it to only the second round. The other thing that's hard is to get them to both be looking at you in essence. They often don't line up like this. All right. This was the best one that I had. Almost the best one. So also Bali, I was looking for a seahorse. This is about 75 feet. So I actually went over by myself. The rest of the group was probably 20, 30 yards away, but I knew where the seahorse was going to be if it was around. So I went and looked for it, couldn't find it, but this nudibranch was sitting on top of kind of a little mound, and so I decided to try and shoot it. And lo and behold, it also had this emperor shrimp below it, below the mouth. Um, Sorry, was there a question? So this was not manipulated. This emperor shrimp was sitting there, basically right by the mouth of the nudibranch. This is a member of the Hypsilodorus balaki clade. I used to think these were all Hypsilodorus balaki, but um, that's not true anymore. There's a whole group of these that look fairly similar, and they're not always easy to tell apart, even by people that are experts. So I'm just going to call it a member of the Hypsilodorus balaki clade. This made it to the finals. So the top 3.9%. I put this into up and coming. This did win the macro category in the local dive shop contest. This is probably one of my favorite pictures. So, and because of the story behind it. So this was a juvenile harlequin shrimp, and again, I'm tired of having all these subject manipulated. So I find this shrimp walking around. So I said, I wonder what it would do if nobody really annoys it. Now, I'm following it around for 45 minutes, literally. So I know I might be annoying it a little, but I tried to let it do its life, and it's wandering around, and it finds this item and picks it up, and then it keeps walking around. Well, it turns out that this item is a juvenile starfish, which is their food. They eat starfish. So I was very happy that I, without any provoking, I was able to watch this shrimp go through its environment, find its food, and then start walking away with it. Um, that probably didn't get conveyed very well in the picture. It only made it to the third round of behavior. But this is really, in my mind, an absolutely cool picture. Um, and I got the eyes in really good focus, and the starfish is also in really good focus. Again, my lens goes up to f22, so this is f20. This is about as maximum as you can get. And you can even see that the front of the claw is not in focus, the big claw. Um, this did get runner up in the macro category in the local dive shop behind the image I just showed right before this. Tulambon also, this is a stony coral ghost goby guarding its eggs on a Ropalia species tunicate. I really love this picture. I love the colors. I love the dark red and the blue. I like the way I was able to get the lighting to really highlight the eggs. Now, one of the people with us in Bali on this part of the trip was a judge on some of the photo contests, and she said this will never have a hope. And the reason why is the fish is looking down. The fish needs to be looking up. Well, the reality is that this fish looked down the whole time. It never really turned around. So this is what reality is. I suppose if I had poked it, maybe it would have looked up. But that just goes to show how the mindset of what you're supposed to do doesn't always work out with what you get. But I still liked it a lot. I thought the colors were really cool. This is a Hypsilodorus species, nudibranch, with a magic tube. I don't do a lot of creative lighting, but this one I did a little bit, and then there was a blue light on it. You have to have a very low f-stop to make this work. Made it to the third round in macro. This got runner-up in the creative category in the local dive shop contest. This is a head shield slug. The species is shown there. I love this picture because, again, I was tired of the head-on stuff. You can see the head though. And then I really like the curvature of the feather star that's behind it. I really thought the colors in the feather star were beautiful, and the lighting, and it kind of is almost glowing. The judges did not agree with any of that. It made it to the second round and up and coming. This was my top shot of the year. This is a Moluccan cardinalfish that's being cleaned by a white-banded cleaner shrimp. This fish was actually back a fair amount, so this was zoomed in a fair amount. I'm glad I have a Sony A1 that has a lot of pixels. But the focus here was right on. You can actually see the shrimp reaching down the throat, literally. You can see his leg right there going straight down into this fish. And I shot it at f9, so I was able to really blur out the background. This did make it to the finals, and it was shortlisted, meaning they requested a file. However, it wasn't one of the ones that was a winner, and the winners, they none of them cheated, so I didn't get to move up. Moving then to Cozumel in December. This is a coral clinging crab in an undulated moray. I thought it was pretty cool that they were sharing the same hole together, and I also got the eyes of all four eyes were in really sharp focus. I put this into portrait, and it only made it to the second round. Cozumel also, so this is a long snout seahorse. I shot this with my wide angle lens. because that's what I had. This seahorse, I was able to get down low enough so I could get the blue water background. So I thought that was kind of neat. I really liked the colors. Only made it to second round. Juvenile jackfish, this is a very hard subject to actually shoot in focus. They are constantly moving. So I had a fairly fast shutter speed, made it to the third round in macro. I like the fact you can get that motion going with the tail. This is an elkhorn coral crab, which I usually find on fire coral, not on elkhorn coral. And I don't actually see much elkhorn coral. Um, but I really liked the way that it was kind of hiding. It was trying to get away from me, of course. But it was kind of going around the corner. This made it to the second round in up and coming. And then this is a flamingo tongue. I think Brian showed a close up of this. This is a little farther out. I kind of thought it stood out. The coral itself was kind of, this drab brown to black. The coral in the background was black, except for the couple of green things. And so I thought it really stood out, and I thought that was kind of interesting, but only made it to the second round. This was shot with wide angle lens. And then I have one from Virginia. This is from Tullibon, and this is a seahorse she shot with a filter. I don't remember the name of it, but this got won the creative category in the local dive shop, and so it helped us. Well, helped her get first place. So congratulations to Virginia. She had the only thrill of victory. Uh, so these are some that I liked or Virginia. Virginia tends to have a better sense of what's going to do well than I do. So these are not all fully developed, but I'll whip through some of these. This is a high key shot where I turned up the strobes and blew out the fish, but the eyes still really popped. So I thought that was kind of cool. This is Navador's Pygmy Goby. This is a Wonderpuss in Tullibon. And I like the fact, so I'm shooting with one strobe usually for macro setup. And so I'm able to get shadows. So you can really see the shadows of this guy. You can see both the eyes. This is a Sayersi elegans. I love these nudibranchs. I did, somebody had put this on a rock. And so I don't actually know where this lives in its normal life, but I'm not sure it's ever crawling around on a rock. And I'm not sure any image you ever see of this is actually not manipulated if it looks like this. So I admit that it was manipulated in this particular case. But I found it that way. I'm sorry, it was shown to me that way. Palau, these are a school of big eye trevally that I made into black and white. The focus on this is really good. The biggest downside for me is there's this fish over here that's not paying attention to where it should be. I could remove it, but when you get to some of the contests, they frown on removing too many things. This is Palau. There was one of the nights there were 8 manta rays by the boat, and I was the only person I think that went in, other than the dive guide. He went in with me. He was doing a lot of free diving. I had my wetsuit on, and I can't free dive with that. I put a little bit of weight on, but not a lot. So you can see him. He had free dove down, and you can see these 2 mantas that were doing their spinning. They do this spinning to feed. And so I thought that was really cool. This is an advertisement. We're going to do a modeling thing, Virginia and I, later this year. This is a modeling. So I had her line up right in the center of this whole Um, it's not easy to get these to match up. And Virginia is better modeling because she has really good buoyancy. This is one of my favorite pictures that will probably, I didn't submit it because I didn't think it would do that well, but this is a red sea whip in Palau, great blue. I love the color on the wall next to it, but there's no hero fish. There's no diver in the back that's going to make it do well. Um, Similar, a knotted fan coral, also really, the colors really popped on this in Palau. Red Sea, this is a Giannis D rec. So I do go to black and white for these. And you can see one of our dive guides swimming down. And I thought that was really cool, the motion, the way he was filling that. The Carnatic wreck in the Red Sea, a school of fish, and you can see the blue water in the background. Crescent tail, big eyes, small school, also Red Sea. This was cool. This was some damselfish laying their eggs. I'm not sure the species, but you can see all the eggs there. This was shot with wide angle, so this does show how good I can also do things that would normally be macro with the wide angle setup I have. This is a Salem Express wreck. This is kind of a sad story. This reminds me of a whale. Looks like a sperm whale on the side. You can see our dive guide above it to give you a sense of the scale. This is a sad story. There were between 400 and 1,600 people that died. This went onto the reef one night. It sank within 20 minutes, and a lot of people died. And this is, they were giving these out, I guess, a happy journey. And so this is inside the wreck, somebody's luggage with obviously a journey that didn't turn out to be happy. This is a Favorinus suruganus. These eat nudibranch eggs, but I got a head-on shot just to show I can do that still. Algae shrimp with eggs. I really like this because the eye was in really good focus and the eggs are in good focus, and you can see the legs in the back holding it on. Daffy Duck, sorry, Donald Duck shrimp. I love these guys. Their front of them is so cool. This is Goniobranchus geminus with emperor shrimp. The emperor shrimp actually reach off the nudibranch and they'll feed. And then a feather duster worm with the same filter that Virginia used on the seahorse, I think, but it gives this swirling look. So this is not motion blur. This is just the filter. And then really close up of an emperor shrimp. And then Cozumel, I really like this southern stingray that was feeding. You can really get a sense of the motion. And I didn't have to worry about clearing all the backscatter because that was part of the picture. And it's got a couple of fish looking on. And then my last one here is a spotted eagle ray swimming along in Cozumel. So that's it.
Wow. A lot of fabulous images. Really, really terrific stuff. And in reference to the beginning part where the agony and the and the victory, uh, it has to be frustrating because you're presenting or you're submitting some fabulous images, and like you said earlier, it just depends on the whim of the whether it's judges or the bent that the contest has. But well, you had some great images, and you get a little good feedback on how well you did.
Yeah.
Should be happy.
I mean, I don't expect to win. If I do well, that's great. I know the competition is pretty stiff, so um, it's breaks of the game. Maybe next year.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but thank you very, very much. Does anyone have any questions before we continue? So we're gonna do something a little different. Since Tom his presentation is fairly long, and so he agreed to do his next month because we got a bit of a late start, and so I didn't want to cut Tom short. So we'll talk about that. I'll send you some emails and to explain what's happening. But he will be presenting the same presentation next month. Now, just to continue for a bit on what I had asked in the very beginning, uh, for anyone that came late to the meeting, uh, for anyone who would like to participate, um, and this is in a photo editing, it's by no means a contest. It is just uh, it's a way for each of us, because I'll be doing the same thing. We see an image and we correct, or I should say, edit what we think needs to be done to that image. We all have different outlooks. Just as with Tom was going to give a presentation tonight, and you know, Tom and I talked about this for a while because I Tom did not want to be in the spot, nor did I want to put him in the spot that he comes onto the scene as the one who says this is what should be done. No, nobody is going to do that. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody should do that. Uh, but this editing of an image that will eat for anyone who would like to participate, you will all have the same image. Well, all of us will have the same image, and we'll do what we think needs to be done. And then that meeting, it all depends on how many participants we have. That meeting or part of it will be just, we'll talk for 5, 10 minutes, show the image and show what we did kind of quickly, uh, and why we did it. And so for sure, um, I think it'll be enlightening. I know that even if I look at a picture that I have edited, oh, a year ago, a month ago, and then I look at it afterwards and I say, what the hell was I thinking? Because it's also, I mean, I say, this looks awful. Well, someone else has an image and they have some idea of what they think it should look like, highlighting some feature, downplaying something else. I think it will be enlightening to all of us. So anyway, don't ask for you to do it right now, but I will send you out an email and
Hi, doggy. Oh my goodness.
if you send me
Jim,
an email
you.
and I will just ask for you to give me a yes or no if you'd like to participate. Then I'll know how much of a meeting that we should dedicate to this, and we'll do it in July. Um, so anyway, there it is. Thanks for first of all Brian and Michael for fabulous presentations, and Tom, thanks for agreeing to do your presentation next month. So uh, that's it. Thank you all, and see you all next month. And I hope you're getting in the water. Okay.